What's up, y'all? Welcome back to an ESPN NFL 2K5 franchise rebuild with the Detroit Lions, and we are in Season 3 off-season, aka the off-season of the 2006-2007 season, after taking a tough loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship. If you didn't watch that game, it was very back and forth in the sense that we took the lead for one glorious moment, and then the Eagles screamed right back for the lead and took us out. So we're going to start by taking a look at our season stats. Alvin Fowler, our starting quarterback for most of the year, who you can see is out again because he tore his calf in that NFC Championship game. 23 touchdowns, 12 picks, but Drew Brees did not do too shabby of a job himself. On the running side of the ball, we were hoping for a bigger year out of Deshaun Foster, but he did manage just under 900 yards. He didn't play every game either. He also got into the end zone 9 total times, so he was a reliable scoring threat for us. Shout out to Corey Schlesinger as well, who managed 3 touchdowns on the year as well. For the second year in a row, Roy Williams had an incredible amount of receiving yards, 1,556 for him. I believe that's a career high for him so far. Brett Richards also having himself a nice season, and Dewey Walters, our rookie tight end, having himself a solid year, but you can see there Roy Williams 14 total touchdowns as well. As we know that when we're playing this one, we're not going to get as much on the defensive stats, especially if we have a talented offense that holds on to the ball for a while. So Boss Bailey was our high tackler of the year. Sam Hamilton, though, if we combine those stats together, did have the most tackles out of anyone on the team. I believe he's just over 80, maybe just under 80, 79 total tackles, if my quick math is correct. Cedric Navarro, in his second year, our first-round draft pick from year number 1, getting 10 sacks on the year. Chris Hovan right behind him with 7 sacks on the year, so we love to see that. Terrence Hull and Sam Farmer were our 2 best pass defenders, 20 and 18 passes defended from both of them, and Sam Farmer did lead his team, and as we'll see soon, potentially the league in interceptions this year. So a very good job by Sam Farmer, and a very good job by him again. 2 total touchdowns on defense to his name, the other 2 belonging to Boss Bailey and Teddy Lehman. I believe all 4 of those were pick sixes. Jason Hansen was our kicker this year. He only made 73% of his field goals, although his long this year was a 51, so he still has a good leg underneath him. And Nick Harris, I like to do net average. He had 30.2. You'll see soon that that's nowhere close to the best in the league. Inside 2020 times, though, that's pretty cool. We did trade for Enrique Hunt halfway through the season. I don't know how many of these stats are for the Colts versus for us, but he's going to be our de facto kick returner next year. I'm especially excited for his punt returning. We had a couple of good returns with Enrique this year before the season ended. Now, looking at the league leaders, you're going to see the same face for all 3 stats, which was not the case in the Dolphins postseason wrap-up. We got Carson Palmer as the best quarterback by rating. We've got Carson Palmer as the best quarterback by passing yards, edging out Tom Brady and Eli Manning and Peyton Manning and Michael Vick. And then we have Carson Palmer as the best quarterback by touchdowns and technically by touchdown to interception ratio as well. So Carson Palmer for the Arizona Cardinals is probably going to take MVP with a bullet this year. Fred Taylor is most likely going to take home the rushing title, although Corey Dillon is quite literally on his heels with just under 1,400 yards. It's Michael Bennett and Amon Green splitting the touchdown number 1 spot, I suppose, with 13 each. Deshaun Foster sneaking in there. And you see, actually, I just noticed there right now, Kevin Jones also had 9 touchdowns this year, so good job by Kevin Jones. Roy Williams leads the league in reception yards for the second year in a row. Santana Moss and Randy Moss are the only 2 other receivers to get over 1,000 yards, but we just crushed them in touchdown receptions, 14 to just 9 and 9 by 2 of the Jackson and Johnson pair. LeVar Arrington is going to lead the league in tackles this year, 124 to his name. Carlos Dansby coming up right behind him. That name will be relevant very soon. Julius Peppers leads the league in sacks this year, but I wanted to highlight Irvin Mann, the 6'4 rookie out of Wake Forest, getting 13.5 sacks via simulation this year. Terrence Hull and Sam Farmer both are going to lead the league in passes defended, the closest behind them just getting 14 apiece. And for interceptions on the year, we kind of alluded to it. Sam Farmer is going to have that 4-way tie for the most interceptions in the league out of the cornerback position, which is really awesome to see. Great job by Sam Farmer, and he's also going to have the tie for the lead of the most defensive touchdowns this year. splitting that honor with Andre Dyson. So we're very, very stoked about the progress and the prowess of Sam Farmer. And for forced fumbles, Derek Brooks and Robert Thomas are going to be the league leaders with 5 apiece. So a quick review of our transactions. We traded away Dre Bly for Enrique Hunt, who we talked about is now our returning specialist. We also got a couple of 4th rounders back because we put a couple of 5th rounders in the deal. We also got an upgrade at guard for a couple of those 5th round picks by giving away a lesser guard in David Laverne. We're going to take a look at how Dre Bly did for the Indianapolis Colts. He did just have 1 interception on the year. Unfortunately, that interception was against us. I don't want to talk about it. You can watch the episode if you want to see it. I guess that Carson Palmer would be the MVP of the league in Season 3, and I was correct. Congrats to Carson Palmer. Good things to come, hopefully, for our Carson Palmer in the Dolphins franchise rebuild. Go watch that if you don't know what I'm talking about. Dante Culpepper is going to take home Offensive Player of the Year. Great job by him. Not entirely sure how that's calculated. Not sure how this was calculated either, but 2 Cardinals getting Player of the Year honors. It makes sense. They were 12-5. They had the best record this year. Congrats to Carlos Dansby for taking home Defensive Player of the Year. Gene Perry is going to take home Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's a halfback for the Miami Dolphins, if I do remember correctly. And then Brent Strickland, this is an outside linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. Getting 6 interceptions from that outside linebacker position is very nice. Great job by the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And as I guessed as well, Fred Taylor will take home the rushing title with nearly 1,400 yards and those 10 touchdowns. Now we're going to our total offense ranking, which is number 1 with a large bullet. We were the best offense by yards gained all year. We were also the best passing offense by yards gained, as you see us in that top spot well above the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the team behind us. We dropped down into just about the 11th spot, I believe, when we go by rushing yards. You can see the Patriots and the Falcons and the Vikings all having the best rushing offenses this past year. We're a little bit more middle of the road for defense. Total yards allowed, we're somewhere in that 10th, 11th spot. The best defense by yards allowed were the Bucks and the Bears. They're also the best passing defenses. We're, again, right around that 10th or 11th spot. Middle of the road sort of passing defense. We can always get better at all of these things, including the run defense, which we're a little bit better than the pass offense, but not as good as we could have been. The Panthers and the 49ers and the Ravens boasting the best run defenses this year. We're also in the middle, sort of, actually, we're not in the middle of the pack for this. We're at the bottom of the pack. We're freaking 31st in 3rd down conversions, not good. We're also 31st in 4th down conversions because the Texans simply did not try any 4th down conversions. So we were last in 4th down conversions. Not so great. Red zone scoring percentage, we were much better at. Our 89% puts us at just about 8th in the league. So good job by us getting into the end zone, or at least getting points out of it as much as possible. We're a bit lower in defensive red zone percentage. I think we're closer into the 20s with our 84%. We want that lower percentage if we can get it. So that's all the stats for the year. We're going to move into the postseason results. We only have 1 game to simulate. It is the Super Bowl against the Tennessee Titans and the Philadelphia Eagles. And in Season 3, the Philadelphia Eagles finally are able to lift the Vince Lombardi trophy. I have to imagine 1 or 2 of their touchdowns were from Michael Lewis, because the very rare strong safety getting Super Bowl MVP. Of course, unfortunately, 2K5 doesn't really give us those sort of results, and we can't really ascertain that for ourselves. Looking at our injuries at the end of the year, Alvin Fowler with his torn calf muscle, I just wanted to highlight that because I'm curious if it's going to affect his development whatsoever, because he had a very, very good year stat-wise, but he did take a couple of rough injuries. Before we go anywhere else, we do want to celebrate our Pro Bowlers. Roy Williams taking the first place in votes for Pro Bowler for wide receiver by 300,000. That is no small margin. At guard, Damian Woody takes home the top spot, beating out Sean Hutchison and Reuben Brown. Shout out to Reuben Brown, who's on our Dolphins team right now in the other series. This one was a little bit of a surprise. Jason Hansen getting the number 1 votes for kicker in the NFC, so he's going to get the kickoff honors. I hope they're ready for some kickoffs to the 20-yard line. And not much surprise here, Sam Farmer in his second year getting number 1 in the cornerback Pro Bowl voting, And that's going to do it for our Pro Bowlers. And I guess Jason Hansen just needed that Pro Bowl under his belt to call it a career for himself. So him and Brian Walker are going to retire. We're going to let them walk away. I could, really stretch this out and go through each person, and I think you're going to see all of them slowly get released as I vamp through this part, but we're going to go ahead and release every single person that is expiring this year. So Tony Bua gets released to free agency. Dante Curry, who had some moments in his first season with us, we didn't really use him in the second season. We drafted Grant Norris, Grant Norris, and he's on the bench now. Avon Coburn, in his 5th year expiring contract, probably wants some more money. We are going to let him go. Arnaz Battle, he caught a couple of nice passes for us. I feel like we held on to him for longer than the computer usually does. We are going to let him go because we just have better receivers on our bench. Isaac Hilton, we just signed Isaac Hilton as a free agent in our first offseason for the Dolphins. We're going to go ahead and release him here in our 3rd season going into the 4th. And this one was the toughest for me to get my head around and also emotionally wrap my heart around, but we are going to let Corey Schlesinger walk. And before we do anything else, we're going to take some of that extra cap space that we have, and we're going to sign Roy Williams for an extra long 4-year deal. For good money, he's been the best receiver in the league for 2 years in a row, so we want to get him locked up for a few more years, even though he had 1 more year left on his deal. We're also releasing Daryl Santos. We were putting way too much money into our defensive tackle position, and I wanted to get a little space there. Now, we didn't really have much to say about free agency. There wasn't much talent. I would say that Mungro and Peter Warwick were probably the 2 most enticing pieces if you were looking for that, but we needed a kicker, and we were thinking about drafting a kicker, but then we saw John Casey was available, so we decided to get a little bit older at kicker because he was competent and he just looked like he was a guy that we could grab. At this point, I realized that I forgot about retirement, so we're going to acknowledge Mushin Muhammad deciding to hang it up. We've got wide receiver Troy Brown out of the Patriots deciding that it was time to go and do something else other than football. Mark Brunell is retiring as a member of the Oakland Raiders. As you know, he is a St. Louis Ram when he starts his game, so a little bit of a travel to the West Coast for Brunell. Speaking of the St. Louis Rams, Isaac Bruce is deciding to call it a career. That's a big, talented receiver deciding to hang it up for the Rams. Maybe not as big, but just as potentially talented, Keenan McCardell is also going to retire for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on the Dallas Cowboys, on the theme of talented receivers, calling it a career, Keyshawn Johnson decided that he is ready for TV in the year 2007. And who else is ready for TV? None other than defensive end Michael Strahan. So he will no longer be a part of that New York Giants defensive line. We will see how they can backfill that position. Staying in New York City, halfback Curtis Martin is among the retirees. A salute and a shout out to him. We'll see how long it takes him to retire in the Dolphins franchise. I did not grab where Peter Warwick went. We'll grab that in a different video. We did see that James Mungro went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so he's over there in Pittsburgh. I don't even know if we're going to see him or not. Now, looking at Mel's mock draft, we've got Edwin Carr out of Memphis. He's 6'1" and 202 pounds, a little big for a halfback, but we decided going into the draft after scouting him out and also the discussion in the live stream that we wanted a back that could potentially take some more short yardage, close yardage, power back situations from Deshaun Foster, especially after getting Schlesinger to not re-sign. We do take Edwin Carr. We were excited in the 2nd round to go ahead and take Ed Hansen, big man out of Iowa. He's going to immediately make an impact on our front line at the guard position. We then take Lowell Sparks out of Maryland at the free safety position to back up Terrence Holt. After that, we had a hole to fill in the outside linebacker position. We do that in the form of Don Boone. Don't ask me about what I think about his picture. Please don't ask me. We then take Jake Hamilton out of SMU to take the backup fullback position since we already had Glover in there. We like Glover. Might as well grab a backup for him as well. We go and take another strong safety in the form of Brad Walton since we did have Walker retire and we did not re-sign Tony Bua. And then finally, in round number 7, we take Luis Edwards out of North Carolina State. He was actually on the list for someone we should take by the scouts, so we decided to use that pick for that guy. So looking at our overall, Ed Hansen is technically the best overall guy that we took. You can see our number 1 pick, Edwin Carr, is only a 61, but that's what happens when most of the halfbacks get taken in the first round. So we're going to go ahead and sign all of these guys. We grab Ed Hansen first and foremost. Now, for rookies, I like to sign them all on ascending deals. I typically don't like to give guys bonuses unless they are above a 70 overall. I actually adhere to that at free agency a lot of the time, unless there's something we really, really need them for. And you can see Don Boone, like I gave him 10% because he was a 70. Hopefully he'll grow out of that. And then Lowell Sparks, and below, I believe, we start giving no bonus to, with the exception of Edwin Carr when we get to him, because since he's a first-round pick, we do decide to give him a little bonus with the hope that he will grow into a more effective piece. I think the fact that we are giving him a deal with a bonus and he's ascending still and we're giving him so much money in this first year, we're going to just have to use him a bit in the offense. I don't want to use dead money on this guy, so we'll definitely be using him. We've got John Lane. I think I might have cut out the footage of us taking John Lane, but we did grab John Lane. He had high hands numbers. You know, I love drafting me a wide receiver with good hands. And then, of course, Luis Edwards were able to grab on a long and cheap contract. So we go ahead and cut the contract of Gerard Wilson. He's in his 3rd year out of Purdue. He's never seen the field once for us. And we could honestly just use that $1.31 million back right now. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the preseason. You can see we've got the Browns a bye week, the Eagles, who beat us to go to the Super Bowl. Then we traveled to San Francisco to take on the 49ers for our only away game. And then we've got a little NFC North preview against the Minnesota Vikings. We go ahead and make one final signing for a backup defensive end. I wanted someone who could potentially make a backup since defensive ends do cycle in a lot with the current fatigue settings. I like Michael Haynes. I've used him before. Let's hope he can do a little bit of damage off the bench. And look at us at a 90 overall. We've got a good team. We seem to have made it a little bit better through our actions in the offseason. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our simulation game cast of the entire preseason as the Browns immediately score on a big pass from whoever that was. So we're going to sit back, relax, and watch the simulation. We will be back on the other side of it. So yeah, we kind of blew that one, huh? If you decided to watch all the way through that, you would see that we gave them the ball with enough time to score, and they go right ahead and score, and in overtime we lose on the field goal because we couldn't keep their offense at bay with our backup defense. So bygones are bygones. Our second week bye week has gone, and we are right back in action at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Potentially a little revenge for that NFC Championship loss. It's not that big of a deal if we don't beat them in the preseason, but a little bit more time for our starters. We'll see how they do. We certainly were driving right there at the end. The backups doing their best to get a W for us there at home, for the people who decided they wanted to come out and see the Lions play. But alas, a little bit too late, too short. And we are 0-2 heading into our only road trip of the preseason, going to take on the San Francisco 49ers. But unfortunately, we have a familiar face on the injury report. Zach Thomas, our 12-year inside linebacker veteran, has broken some ribs and is out for 4 weeks. We were already going to see some backups in this game, a little bit less than the game beforehand, but we'll see how this defense does without the services of Zach Thomas and against these San Francisco 49ers. Enjoy. No Zach Thomas, no problem, as the Detroit Lions take care of business and their away game. Maybe it was the San Francisco sunshine, maybe it wasn't even foggy that helped them out, but unfortunately, Derek Hamilton, another familiar face, to join the injury report. We were talking in stream about how we were probably going to cut Derek's contract because it was not guaranteed, and then he must have heard us talking and then decided to get his kneecap broken because you can't cut injured players in this game, even though injured players end up in free agency randomly from other teams. So we won't talk about glitches from 2K5, but we will talk about the fact that we are now trying to get our first win at home. We've managed to win away, but we can't win at home. We're going to try and do so against our NFC North rival, the Minnesota Vikings. This one's going to be mostly starters. I'm pretty sure it's all starters all the way to the very end. So a little preview for the season itself. Hopefully we get no more injuries. We'll see you at the end of this simulation. Hopefully that is not an indication of things to come for the season, because we got absolutely capital S spanked by the Minnesota Vikings going into that one. So even though our team has improved overall, the simulation gods are not kind to us. We go 1-3 with a tough loss to the Minnesota Vikings there in the last game of the preseason, but we are going to march right forward into the regular season. We're going to kick things off with a bang at home against the Chicago Bears. That will be a good tone setter for the year against a division rival. We then have Washington, New York, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Philadelphia. After that, we travel to the Broncos for a little AFC play before our bye week. We're still in the AFC for the Kansas City Chiefs, the current Super Bowl players, I suppose. Green Bay Packers again, the Chargers, and the Panthers before heading into our home stretch for the season, back to the Vikings at the Cowboys again. I wonder if they'll go defeated again this season. We then travel to Chicago for a matchup after the first season, Arizona, before heading into our finale of the season. Our goal now, since we made the playoffs last season, that was our primary goal from the season before, is to win the division, so we're going to be excited about that. And we have a little bit of a quarterback controversy as we look at the ratings progression. Drew Brees is now better than Alvin Fowler, so there's going to be, stick around to the end, there's going to be a little comment request from you there at the end. You can see Carr progresses to a 64. Deshaun Foster takes a big jump back, though, to a 91 overall. Although he honestly didn't play like a 98 overall, if we're being totally real. Hamilton takes a nice leap forward, as well as Glover, 83 and 79 at the fullback position. Love to see Brett Richards jumping up into the 80s. Lane and Webster are only in the 60s, but if you look at those hands, love to see 90 hands overall. And we're going to immediately jump into highlighting Dewey Walters because he is in the Century Club, baby. 100 overall for Dewey, and the rest of the tight end room is no slouch as well. Watson has progressed to an 86 overall. Fitzsimmons has progressed to a 71 overall, and they all have good blocking numbers. Vernon Green also getting to really elite territory. He's much better at protecting the pass rather than the run, but he's a 95 overall, and his backup is not so bad either. An 83 overall for Doyle Wood, who we picked last year. Damian Woody still a 92 overall, and look at that, Ed Hansen progressing up to an 85. Now, I think Coleman is probably still going to start, but I want to see that run block, or that pass block number, get better for Hansen very soon. Now, Ward, however, who we drafted, or I think maybe we kept him on the bench, he's starting to get really good, and we're going to consider a move in our tackle room because we might have two starters and only one spot for them. Now, you can see here Owen is now better than Sean Rogers by stats, so we'll have to figure out what to do with that. Hall and Navarro are still our best overall defensive ends. Haynes actually took a little bit of a regression, and Allison moves forward slightly. So it'll be good to have Haynes backing up Navarro and Hall. You can see Boss Bailey and Teddy Lemon continue to get better, and Don Boone takes a nice jump up to that 73 level. So we've got a pretty solid outside linebacker room. Pearson steps forward to a 75 overall. So he's actually going to steal that starting spot from Freeman while we wait for Zach Thomas to get better. Now here's the big surprise. Sam Farmer regresses to a 76 overall, despite having a fantastic year last year. We've got a pretty confident cornerback room. Sam Hamilton jumping up to an 80 overall, and his backup, Walton, is now a 72. Love to see that progression from the rookie and the young guy, Hamilton. And finally, our last surprise, Sparks, is now technically a better free safety than Terrence Holt. It's only slightly, but that coverage and that tackle may just give him a chance to become the starter. And one of the final things we do before ending the preseason is we go ahead and decide to lock up Sam Hamilton for another 4 years with a different contract. We're paying him now, and hopefully the contract becomes a little bit more manageable as we go. So we're a 90 overall, but the Bears are a 91 overall. So they've got a great team, and we've got a heck of a matchup for season 1, or for matchup 4 of season 1. I was so close to getting through this entire video without messing up like that, but you know what? It's too late now. We're keeping it, everybody. So season 4 is on the way. We're going to start it next week at the posting of this video, about 1 week from today. So looking forward to having you on there. We do live stream these games, so make sure you're smashed up on the subscribe button so you can be there for these live streams. And here's what I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to put a poll in the community tab. So I want you to go to that poll in the community tab, especially if you've made it this far. And I want you to vote for who you think the starter for season 4 should be. Should it be Alvin Fowler, who did not have as good as a preseason and kept the same rating as Drew Brees, who had a pretty good preseason and improved to a 75 overall versus Fowler's 72. So I'm gonna put that poll out to my community. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. And for Peanuts 24/7, we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.